Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.biz. What's Indy's Trusted Servant? Well, that's me, Danny O'Malia, Indy's Trusted Servant. I do customer service training and keynote speaking about customer service. It's all about the culture of the organization. Why are Chick-fil-A and Nordstrom, and up until recently at least Southwest Airlines, better than everybody else in their industries? Well, they had great cultures, and they somehow managed to keep them as they grew, which is very hard to do. I learned all of this at the hand of the master, my late father, Joe O'Malia, back in the O'Malia Food Market days. But even before that, when I was 9 or 10 years old, back in the mid-50s, when he had a little grocery store in Broad Ripple, where the Vanguard Bar is today, he lost that grocery store. 10 years later, he came back and launched O'Malia Food Markets, 9 stores, 950 employees. One of the things I learned from my dad was never, ever, ever give up. If you're interested in talking to me about my customer service keynoting or training, give me a call at 317-413-9062. What's the Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.biz? Well, I like to describe it as lively, local, small biz and community talk where you can feel the pulse of Indy. And today we've got community and the arts on the agenda. My good friend from Our Lady of Mount Carmel, Jim Reilly, is the major domo of the Actors Theater of Indiana, which is located in the Tarkington Theater building. What's the name of the theater?
It's called the Studio Theater.
The Studio Theater.
But it's in the Tarkington building.
Yes, they're by the Palladium in Carmel. And we're going to talk about the Actors Theater and a couple of shows they've got coming up. But before that, Jim, kind of introduce yourself to the viewers. Tell them the Jim Reilly story in as brief a time as possible.
The Jim Reilly story starts in a little town called Chester, Pennsylvania, just south of Philadelphia. And I grew up there, and then went to a little college called Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg, Maryland.
The Mountaineers.
The Mountaineers.
Yes, yes.
And then my first job was in Baltimore for an accounting firm. Make a long story short, ended up in Indianapolis working for the Simon Property Group.
And what year was that?
That was 1977.
Okay. And you met your wife, PJ.
I met PJ in college. There was a ladies' school on the other side of the mountain from Mount St. Mary's. And that was an all girls school, and I went to an all men's school.
Right.
That's how we met. And PJ worked for the Department of Defense when we first got married. And her father worked at the Pentagon, so there's a military connection with PJ's family.
Yep.
I stayed with Simon for about 10 years. Had an opportunity through the Steve Goldsmith administration to go manage the city market.
And that was interesting. I think I had you on the radio show back in the day about the city market, right?
City market was probably the best job I ever had. I was there on 2 separate occasions. I was there about 7 years the first time, which was a real blast of a job. That's back when the market was truly the city market.
It was booming, yeah.
You had all the old ethnic families, the Italian families, the German families. It was the place to go, and that was a fun job. I was recruited by another organization after about 10 years there, and I went. It was a mistake, looking back now.
I know.
And I came back to the market a second time and lasted about 5 years, and I decided it had changed so much in 5 years. The job had ceased to become fun. So I decided, my background is business. I'm an accounting major. I had an opportunity to help other organizations, primarily not-for-profit organizations. And so I hung out my shingle and to help not-for-profits, because my theory being, most not-for-profits have a great business idea, but have no idea how to run the organization. Mm-hmm. So I saw a niche there, and my first client just happened to be Actors Theater of Indiana.
And what year was this?
That was in 12 years ago, 2010. 11, yeah. And I went there on a 3-month consulting contract, and that was 12 years ago.
And that's before they were in the Tarkington?
No, that's when they first
moved there? Okay.
Actors Theater was founded in 2005 by 3 professional performers who met in New York. They performed on Broadway.
And one of them was from here.
And one of them was from North Central High School. They all have their Bachelor of Fine Arts degrees, and they all met and they performed in Broadway shows, off-Broadway shows, Radio City Music Hall performances. So they had a very good professional career in New York. They all met and they became friends, and they decided they would like to start their own professional theater company. And with one of the actors was from here, so she kind of said, let's go to Indianapolis. And this was before the mayor even had talked to them about the Center for the Performing Arts. So they moved here and they started in 2005, and they started Actors Theater of Indiana.
And where'd they hang their hat at that point?
They performed at Pike Performing Arts Center. They performed at Zionsville High School. Wherever they could get a stage, that's where they performed. And they performed primarily Broadway shows. Their mantra was Broadway in your backyard.
And this is a professional theater group.
Professional theater group, and by that I mean they are members of the Actors Equity Union. And I didn't know this at first, but you got to really do some hard work to get your Actors Equity card. And so we are a professional organization. To compare, there are only 2 or 3 other professional theater companies in Indianapolis. The IRT is a professional theater company, and Beef and Boards is a professional theater company.
And that's it?
That's it. Civic Theater is a community theater. The main difference is we pay our employees, we pay the actors. Civic does not pay their actors. They are a community theater.
You guys perform in the same building.
Same building, but different shows.
Right.
Obviously.
Right.
So, again, I went there on a 3-month contract, and I kind of got hooked. I can't sing, I can't dance, and I can't play the piano, but
I know. Yeah, I know. I've seen that.
But I can run the organization, and that's the value that I brought to the company.
So the Actors Theater of Indiana now hangs their hat in the studio theater,
right.
In the Tarkington building. You've got an office a few blocks north of there, right?
When the mayor started getting ideas about the center,
Mayor Brainerd in
I'm
Carmel.
sorry, in Carmel, started getting plans together in his head for the Center for the Performing Arts in Carmel. He had seen them perform. I'm not sure where, but he had seen them and approached them about being the resident professional theater company at the Center for the Performing Arts. And that was an offer they could not refuse.
Of course, of course.
So they moved in there about 11, 12 years ago, and that's where they've been ever since. They perform in the studio theater, which is a black box theater, meaning it's relatively small. It's very it's
intimate.
An intimate place to have a show.
Couple hundred seats, right?
It's about 200 seats, and that's where they performed. It's in the same building as the Civic Theater. It's in the Tarkington building, and there's a Tarkington stage, and there's the studio theater. It gets confusing, but it's right across the plaza from the Palladium.
Right, right. So you guys perform how many shows a year?
Normally we perform 4 productions a year, each about 13 shows. So it's about 52 shows a year.
And we're kind of at the end of the season right now.
We're getting at the end of the season, and the COVID forced us to make a few changes. We shortened some of the production runs, and we started doing some smaller shows, maybe just like a weekend production in the studio theater. But COVID made us look at things a little differently, and we couldn't do the full productions. One, there were restrictions put on us by the Actors Equity Union, as well as the Center for the Performing Arts.
Right, right.
There were a lot of restrictions. So
were you dark for a while?
we were dark for about a year.
Yeah. That had to hurt.
It really hurt, and the sad thing is, all theater companies are going through this now. The public really hasn't come back like they were here before.
Right.
They weren't.
Right.
There's still the fear of the COVID. There's still the fear of the getting together with large groups of people. And so we've had to overcome that. And we had a meeting last week with all the resident companies, and there are 9 other resident companies, dance, Wood and Wind and the Symphony and everything else, at the Center for the Performing Arts. And we had a meeting last week, and it came out that we are all in the same boat. The arts, and this is all over the entire country.
Let me throw a curveball at you. As bad as the Pacers perform, for the most part, they're drawing 16,000, 17,000 people.
Yeah.
Apparently, that demographic isn't afraid of getting together.
Right.
What makes people that like to go to the theater more afraid of getting together in a smaller group?
Our primary audience is usually in their 70s or 80s.
Yeah, yep.
We do try to attract a younger crowd, but not everybody likes the arts either.
Right, right.
More people like the sports, I think, than they do the
Well,
arts.
that's true. But still, but I'm wondering, what's the difference between the two groups where one's not afraid to get together and the other one is? That's weird.
I think it's the age factor. It's the older people. They see more of a risk for contracting COVID, and it's just been tough. But
When you guys have performed, are people wearing masks?
no, that requirement has been dropped. When we first got back after the COVID restrictions, we were forced to wear masks. And
The performers had to wear masks?
Performers wore masks.
Oh, Lord.
And so it really wasn't the best thing in the world for the arts.
Yeah.
That's been dropped now, but we still see people in the audience wearing masks.
What percentage do you think? Just curious.
Very small.
Less than 10%?
Probably less than 5%.
Okay.
So, but there's still people that are very cautious.
Right.
And that's fine.
Right.
We just don't have the requirement that you have to wear a mask. It's your option.
So what do you got coming up?
Coming up, we have a show starting on, I got my cheat sheet here, starting on April 28th and it runs through May 14th. It's called Mr. Confidential. Mr. Confidential this will be a world premiere show written by a gentleman in Los Angeles, and it's based on the old gossip magazine from back in the 50s.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Confidential. That was probably the National Enquirer or the of the day. All the gossip, all the Hollywood gossip was in this magazine. And it did well. And it was around during the 50s. So there's been a musical written by this gentleman in LA, and he approached us about having the world premiere of this show. So we're going to do that starting in April. And so we're excited. We've never had a world premiere before. And this is the first,
Really?
This is the first world premiere that will be at the Center for the Performing Arts.
So if somebody wants to purchase tickets to the Center for Performing Arts, how do they go about? Obviously, you can go to the box office there in the Tarkington Theater.
No.
No?
No.
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 Oh, you tell me then.
There are two ways to get tickets to go see an Actors Theater show. One is to go to our website, atistage.org.
atistage.org.
And there's a link to the box office at the Center for the Performing Arts, or just go straight to the box office at the center. And that number is 317-843-3800. And just call that number and they can take care of you with the tickets for our shows or any show that's taking place at the Center for the Performing Arts.
Can you walk into the theater and buy tickets?
You can walk right into the box office.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It's right off 3rd Avenue in Carmel at the Palladium.
Now, you've got Mr. Confidential coming up in late April, early May.
Yep.
And then in June, and this is the one that blows me away, you've got this $1 Million Quartet. Is that what it is?
The show is called $1 Million Quartet.
Tell the folks about the genesis of $1 Million Quartet. I'm bringing my wife to this show.
This is the 3rd time that we've done this show. It opened in Broadway several years ago, did real well, went on a national tour, did extremely well. We got the rights to it about 5 years ago, and we performed in the Studio Theater, $1 Million Quartet. The genesis is back, I think it was 1955, I think.
Yep.
There was an impromptu jam session in Memphis, Tennessee.
Was it Memphis or Nashville?
I think, I'm not sure. I
Okay.
thought Memphis, but
Okay.
But it was an impromptu jam session. And in the room that day were Johnny Cash, Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, and Jerry Lee Lewis.
Some fairly big names.
And it was an impromptu jam session at the Sun Recording Studio. And it was recorded. You know, back then it wasn't a very good recording, but it was recording of this jam session, the impromptu jam session.
Sun Records is in Nashville.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it was at Sun Records, and eventually the show was made into a Broadway production. They took the tape from that day and made it into a Broadway production. And it did very, very well. So we got the rights, and if you like rock and roll music from back in the 50s and 60s, these guys, the guys that we got coming in for the show are fantastic. Now, Jerry Lee Lewis just died a couple months ago, but the piano players that we get are just like Jerry Lee Lewis.
He's going to stand up and play the piano?
He stands up, he uses his feet. Actually,
Yeah.
when we did the show a couple years ago, we had a lot of piano repairs because he kept using his feet.
Was that right?
So we had a little problem with the piano. So it's got to be rebuilt. We'll get a strong piano. We had a guy that just sounded like, it looked like Elvis Presley back then for the last production. Unfortunately, this time around, he's bulked up a lot. He had another role that he had to gain weight on.
Okay.
And the problem is not so much finding guys that have the talent.
But they have to kind of look like that.
Yeah, it looks
person.
like these guys did back in the 50s.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's
Well,
the problem.
luckily, I don't know what Carl Perkins looked like, but I know the other three.
Carl Perkins, well, the guy we had, again, I don't know either, but the guy we had the first two times was tall and lanky. So I'm assuming Carl Perkins was
Must have been
tall, lanky. But and the little known fact, the bass player that we have, that we've used the past two seasons or the past two performances, is really, his name is Kyle Presley.
Oh, it's just coincidental.
No, he's Elvis Presley's cousin.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
So that's a little known fact there. So we're looking forward to it. And this time, instead of in the studio theater, which is very intimate, it was a great place to have it. It's going to be on the stage of the Palladium.
The Palladium. And this is, what are the dates? Do you have the dates?
June 16th and 17th.
June 16th and 17th.
It's only a 2 nights, so it's only a 2-performance show. And I've been assured that we can make the stadium stage very intimate, though it's kind of large now. But this show requires a little more intimacy because of the players. Yeah, we got to get a lady to play Elvis's girlfriend. Had a great girl last time, but she's moved away. So we're in the process now.
You're still putting the cast together.
Putting the cast together.
Right. Okay.
And that'll start in earnest probably in March.
Well, I'm really, really excited about this. I interviewed Jim for a magazine that I write articles for, Carmel Parish Neighbors, recently. Found out about this $1 Million Quartet thing, and just the fact that these four people were together, you know. Well, let's see. No. Elvis really burst onto the scene about that time.
Yeah.
But the others were not well known at that time. But that they've been able to save this music from this jam session blows me away.
And I was just amazed too. These guys weren't invited; they just all stopped into the recording studio
at the same time.
At the same time,
yeah.
And they did this jam session, and luckily it was recorded. And
that's fantastic. So moving ahead. When does the theater season start again?
It'll start again in September.
In September. Have you got your lineup for next year?
We're still putting together the shows. We got to run it by the board of directors. We are a not-for-profit, so we have to run things by our board. That should be released, I would imagine, in a couple of weeks.
In a couple of weeks. And if you're interested in what that lineup is, again,
go to atistage.org. Just check out the website.
And keep doing it. Start in a couple of weeks. If it's not up, try a couple of weeks later, and that schedule will be up.
Yeah, so we're excited. It's always fun to do these Broadway type shows. Though we are doing some shows that are maybe not considered Broadway anymore, but people still like them.
Give me some of the past shows, because I saw all those posters in your office.
We opened the first show in the Studio Theater when ATI first went to the Center for the Performing Arts was Chicago.
Okay.
And that was an outstanding show.
Is that before or after the movie? You know?
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
But we're trying to get Chicago back again. For some reason, we cannot get the rights to it. They're not giving the rights to the smaller theaters on that one.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep trying, but our goal is to bring back Chicago again. It was an outstanding show. And we've done shows like La Cage, and we've done all the major Broadway shows. The problem we have, Danny, is you've got a relatively small theater. So you can't bring in like the Music Man type shows. They wouldn't fit.
Yeah, right.
They wouldn't fit.
Right.
They would fit in the Tarkington Theater, which is adjoining us. So we could do shows over there, and we're thinking about maybe doing some more over there.
Is this $1 million quartet a little bit of a test on the Palladium? Or
I think
in
it
a
is.
way, yeah.
I think
yeah.
when I first heard it, I wasn't that wild about it, but I was assured, and the more I thought about it, I said, well, it might work.
You know, it's interesting. As we go back and you tell me about the fact that Mayor Brainerd of Carmel was looking for, a professional theater, how Carmel has put itself on the map largely with the arts, with the Palladium, with the Studio Theater, with the Tarkington Theater, and the Carmel Arts Fair and all of that stuff. It's a kind of if you build it, they will come situation, right?
But I can't ignore the fact that none of the resident companies would be doing what they're doing without the Carmel Arts Grant.
That's important. Tell us about that.
I don't know any other city that does a grant, and it's 1% of the city's budget every year gets allocated to the arts organizations, and that's a big help. And quite frankly, when you think about the Center for the Performing Arts, say you got 7 or 8 or 9 organizations, we're all vying for the same business. We're all vying for the same customer.
Right.
And not everybody likes dancing. Not everybody likes, the woodwind. Not everybody likes symphony. So you got to appeal to your audience. And sometimes you may not get a show that people like. They just don't come to it.
Yeah.
So the Carmel Arts Grant helps augment the revenue stream of the organizations.
Now, you mentioned these other groups, like I didn't know there was a woodwind group, okay? But do they play for your performances and at the Tarkington? No, they do their own stuff.
They do their own stuff. The Tarkington is used primarily by the Civic Theater, and we are the primary tenant in the Studio Theater.
Right.
I'm sorry. I may get the background. The Civic plays in the Tarkington, and we perform in the studio.
But the woodwind and the other groups that you were describing, they do not work with you.
No.
They don't put their shows on
do
with
their
you.
own thing. That's Gregory Hancock and the woodwind and the symphony and.
Yeah, Greg Hancock is my next door neighbor, by the way. Yeah,
neat guy.
Yeah, really interesting guy. Well, okay, this has been really informative. If you haven't been to the Palladium and you haven't been to the Tarkington or you haven't been to the Studio Theater, you should get up to Carmel and see these performances. And this $1 million quartet thing, June 16th and 17th at the Palladium.
Yes, sir.
Give us that phone number again if you want to order tickets.
The box office is area code 317, of course, 843-3800.
Okay, and website?
Website atistage.org.
atistage.org. I will be there with my wife on one of those two events.
And tickets are selling very well. Even though it's a June show, the tickets are really selling well.
Okay, that's great to know. I'll get on it. I'll get on it right away. I don't want to miss that. So, once again, Jim Reilly, Actors Theater of Indiana. Thanks for coming.
Good seeing you again.
And we'll see you all next week.